Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ namasami. As you all know, this is the last Wednesday evening of the 2001 Vassa Rains Retreat. So this will be the last Wednesday evening talk in the Vassa. And for this evening's talk, I wanted to talk about Avijja. I was talking about this with the Anagarikas last night, and so some of the terminology would be fresh in their minds. And I wanted to talk about this because it is a crucial aspect of the Buddhist Dhamma. It is the root cause of all the problems of suffering and of birth, old age, sickness and death. In the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which we chanted a few moments ago, the second noble truth in that sutta was described as the cause of suffering being craving, tanha. However, in other suttas, the Buddha expands or deepens the explanation of the second noble truth, the cause of suffering, to refer to the whole of the 12 links of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, and the origin of even craving, when you find the causal links which show how craving arises, would always come from avijja. And so that one can quite legitimately say that not just the cause of suffering is craving, but the cause of suffering is also avijja. They use the saying very often in the suttas, blinded by avijja, fettered by craving. The untaught ordinary person just wanders from birth to birth, place to place, sometimes feeling delight, sometimes feeling suffering, but never being free from the problems of existence. And so I wanted to focus this evening on avijja, and of course to focus on the end of avijja, that how avijja is destroyed, how it is annihilated. You might say that the Buddha did teach annihilation. He taught the annihilation of the defilements, especially annihilation of avijja. You noticed already that I'm not translating that term. Sometimes people translate it as ignorance, but that really doesn't fit the Pali meaning of the term. Ignorance is something which you abolish at school, or you annihilate through reading books. And many people have gone to schools, many people have read books, many people have got PhDs in Buddhism, but they haven't annihilated or destroyed avijja. It's more than just ignorance. And so I'd like to keep it as avijja for the time being. I think you all know that my preferred rendering for that term is delusion, and I will bring that out later on in this talk. But as we also chanted in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, that it has always been always been understood in Buddhism that enlightenment is somehow a seeing of a hidden truth, seeing things in a different way, and that seeing, that insight, that enlightenment insight is something which actually changes just the whole cognitive process, the whole way we perceive and see this world. In particular, by seeing clearly, and we won't go around craving for things in the same way that a person would not go putting their hand in a fire once they know that it hurts. It's because of delusion that we keep on putting our hands in the fires of the sensory realm. So, to understand what avijja is, to really get to the root of it, it's instructive to know that even though the Buddha never said that avijja has a first cause, he did actually say that avijja has nutriments, has things which support it and keep it going. And those things which keep avijja going are the 5 hindrances. These 5 hindrances are fundamental to the practice of Buddhism. And you can put the practice of Buddhism, the purpose of the Eightfold Path, down to the overcoming of these 5 hindrances. First of all, overcoming them temporarily, and then overcoming them permanently. Because through overcoming these 5 hindrances, the 5 hindrances of interest in the world of the 5 senses, sometimes called sensory desire, ill will towards a person, a being, or even a mental state, sloth and torpor, the dullness of the mind, the lack of energy, the restlessness and remorse of the mind, never being able to find contentment, and of course doubt. These 5 hindrances are those things which support, generate and fuel avijja. This is one of the reasons why that I teach, as I hope that many other monks teach, that to really be able to overcome that delusion, that avijja, to see things clearly, one has to overcome these 5 hindrances. And it's a waste of time to think, to perceive, to view that you can know truth, reality, and depend upon what you experience as truth when these 5 hindrances are still acting, they are still at work. Even when these 5 hindrances have been abandoned temporarily. Again, that sometimes that what you experience can still not be absolutely truthful. And the reason is because you have to abandon these 5 hindrances again and again and again to weaken avijja. Using the Buddha's simile of the 5 hindrances as something which is the food, the sustenance of avijja, by cutting off these 5 hindrances, you're starving avijja. You're that you are weakening it until the time comes it's just so weak that you can push it over. What actually pushes over avijja, what sort of destroys it, the first destruction of avijja, is always said to be the words of an Aryan together with one's own reflection, going to the source of all this. But you need to weaken those 5 hindrances first of all. Sometimes that people think that whatever they see, whatever they hear, whatever they think, because they see it, because they hear it, because they think it, that it's true. One of the most useful investigations into delusion is using what we were talking about last night as the vipalasas, to see how one's whole cognitive process, and by cognitive process I mean the way one views the world, the way one perceives the world, and the way one thinks about the world, to see all of those 3 mutually dependent on each other, and to see that once one of those is in error, it makes the whole other 2 in error, and that error is self-supporting. Once there is a view which is not truthful according to reality, it bends perceptions to fit the view, and it bends thoughts according to your perceptions. And the views are bent. You might say they're constructed out of so much thinking, so many thoughts. And it's hard to be able to break that cycle. But that cycle is called avijja, delusion. How often is it that because of your views, or even about Dhamma, that you perceive in a particular way, and that perception is real in the sense that it's actually appearing in your mind. And so you trust appearances. Sometimes people say that bare experience, bare sensation is seeing things as they truly are. But anyone who knows the Vipalasas, anyone who's seen through the delusion of the mind, knows that even what you perceive is not the way things are. It's the way you imagine them to be. The perceptions are unreliable. How often have you been fooled by perceptions? Even pages of a thesis, you get them the wrong way round. Perception, that's all. You're perceiving what somebody says, what they mean. In daily life, in ordinary experience, you know that your perceptions can sometimes trick you. If that happens in ordinary life, on things which are concrete, how much more likely is it that you will misperceive metaphysical realities, whether it's the nature of the body, whether it's the nature of thought, whether it's the nature of will, the nature of consciousness, the nature of the mind. How easy it is to misperceive those things. So you can't really rely upon such perceptions and thoughts and call them insights. So often, monks especially, whatever comes into their head, they call them insights, and they go and give Dhamma talks about them. But you should not give Dhamma talks, you should not believe such insights. You should check those insights against two criteria. First, are those insights coming up based on samadhi? And are those insights coming up based on the Buddha's teachings? I say that those two criteria are necessary because the Buddha said again and again, and nobody, I think, doubts that this is truth, that yatha bhutayana dasana, the wisdom, the insight, jnana and dasana, according to the way things truly are, yatha bhuta, arises as a result of samadhi. Samadhi pachaya yatha bhutayana dasana. And the samadhi which is meant there is always the samadhi which is free from the 5 hindrances. And as you've heard me say before, the only time you really know those 5 hindrances are overcome is after the experience of jhanas.